I love mash. No, I'm not talking about mashed potatoes, which I do quite like. I am quite partial to a mashed potato or monster mash.
My surprise.
No, I'm talking about mash. A funny and serious series. I've rewatched it countless times. Really, it follows like a mobile surgical unit. That's what MASH stands for. During the Korean War, you might be thinking, what? Why the hell would you watch that? But it's actually so funny. It's got strong messages of like anti-war, and it's mostly like a comedy series. But what I want to talk about today is my favourite character, Corporal Klinger. He's at the same time quite insane while also being the sanest man in the outfit. He's Because he's in an insane situation. He's drafted into the US Army from Toledo, Ohio, and booted to Korea, where 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 in early episodes the story of his drafting comes up, and he tells a lot of different tales, including putting his toenail into a pencil sharpener at the draft board, and another time he trying to get like a hardship discharge to get like spirited away back to Toledo. He lied about his brothers dying in like a factory accident, which you know his brothers did not exist. He's an only child, and yeah, Colonel Potter says this, and then Klinger responds in kind, saying, "Oh, they were actually illegal immigrants. They were living under the patio, and he had to like slip food through the floorboards." Apart from lying about the deaths of his non-existent brothers to get out of the army, his main strategy is to convince someone he's insane by dressing up as a woman and and convincing people that he thinks he is a woman. Now, these days, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but in the 1950s American culture, it was something that was just frowned upon, just a tad, just a little bit, um, to put it mildly. It's also quite ironic because I actually didn't know this until recently, but there was actually like quite a strong culture of cross-dressing in the army. Um, like according to the World War II Museum of New Orleans, they even provided instructions for how to dress and ideas of how to like get a hold of the necessary materials, which is actually pretty cool. Because I've seen like photos and whatnot, and they actually put a lot of effort into like making some cool shows. Um, yeah, because from what I've read, they actually used it to like, well, for one, like entertain the troops, because it's a pretty grim situation, war, but also to like raise money, both abroad and at home, which is pretty good. And all in all, it's just a good bit of fun. Um, yeah. Back to Princess Klinger. Oh, did I forget to mention? Technically, Corporal Klinger is a Disney princess. Now stick with me. The show MASH is owned by 20th Television, which it's a subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company. Now, according to Klinger himself, in season 5, episode 11, Klinger claims he is Zoltan, rightful king of the Gypsies. The proof is definitely not forged. It's totally legit. He didn't forge it for the sake of a discharge. I'm not actually sure what his angle was here. Was he trying to get like a hardship discharge, trying to say that the gypsies would be in hardship if he didn't go home? I don't know. I'm not actually sure of what his angle there was. But um, oh no, I think his angle was like he was a gypsy, so he wasn't like an American citizen. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, um, so he handed over this totally legit document where he said his people cried out for their rightful king, and his parents, um, adoptive parents, I should say, or kid, yeah, confessed to stealing him as a child from the gypsies. Now, this means he is royalty, and since Disney owns the show, he is canonically a Disney princess. Facts. Now, if you're a touch insane like me, you might be wondering, how does an American corporal in 1950s acquire all those damn fabulous dresses? From the show, we know he sometimes makes his own, but that still leaves material costs, and a lot of the time he buys his own dresses outright from catalogs and whatnot. And he also sometimes gets hand-me-downs and stuff, but that still doesn't account for all the made dresses and all the really elaborate get-ups he has. Now, corporals in the US Army, like Klinger in the Korean War, regardless of if they were in a MASH unit or not, typically fell into pay grade E4 and received a monthly income of about roughly $117.60 to $122.30 US dollars. This equates to about 1,580 to 1,644 in purchasing power today in US dollars, and respectively. There was also a lot of combat compensations and allowances. Now, he might have qualified for some of these compensations, but I don't think largely for the combat ones, except for the few times in episodes where he went to front aid stations, that were on the front lines, which maybe, but I'm not sure. So we'll just stick to kind of the base pay. Oh, and there was also allowances depending on time served, but we're not even going to touch that. Now, the dresses and the dress material that Klinger would have bought fluctuated wildly. You could imagine that prices weren't exactly stable during the war. Some materials, such as cloth and wool, came locally, but most of it, I think north of 70-80%, it was actually imported by the US. Oddly enough, it caused a wool boom. There we go. And my country, New Zealand, became the third largest wool producer in the world, which is quite wild. There's a bit of a gold rush in wool here. Yeah. Now back to dresses. Because of the insanity of the economy in Korea at this time, it's really hard to pinpoint how much these materials and dresses cost. I went a little insane trying to find the exact cost, but I just could not find reliable numbers everywhere. Even if I could track down numbers, they just weren't accurate, because you had the legit open market. Well, I say legit. You had the market of cloth and materials, and then you had the black market, and then they would both kind of yo-yo up and down wildly due to the war and inflation. Yeah. But in season 5, episode 2, named Bug Out, in part 2 of that, because it was a two-parter, Klinger mentions that his entire collection at the time costed him $300 US, which would be roughly worth $4,000 and 32. Let me try that again. Which would roughly be worth 4,000. Sweet Jesus. Which would be roughly worth, in today's price, accounting for inflation, about $4,032.90 in US currency. Now this fluctuates slightly downwards, going past 1950, but it's roughly accurate, and that's still a staggering amount of money. If I had this sort of money, I could buy a used 2000 Mitsubishi Pajero, which is a banger of a car. Now, this is insane, and from that fact alone, he should have gotten the Section 8. That it's if Klinger had if Klinger had held on to that $300 in 1950, according to average prices, he could have, I don't know, bought 4.6 acres of land. That's roughly 2.7 rugby pitches for all you fellow Kiwis and other lovers of rugby, or 3.6 football fields for you Americans. Now, I was shocked, and this led me down a bit of a rabbit hole that I think I'm still in. I've been looking at wages and costs of things in 1950s. For example, in Toledo, Ohio, the median gross rent in 1950 was $42. He could have bought 60 pumpkins. Why pumpkins? Chuck that in a risotto or soup, and it's delicious. Takes goddamn ages, but it's delicious. Now, back to Klinger, because we're going to get back on track. In Season 6, Episode 20, titled Male Call 3, Klinger receives a letter from his wife Laverne that she's divorcing him for a sausage maker named Morty. Now, sometimes marriages don't work out, but what if there was a hidden reason for this sudden divorce? Klinger, like most responsible husbands, would have been sending money home to support the household. But what if he wasn't? What if he was spending most of that money on dresses and materials, inadvertently pushing his wife into the hands of a presumably successful sausage maker, who I'm not sure how much he would have made. I went a little mad as well trying to find out that, looking through statistics and old census data and whatnot. According to some census data, I found butchers in 1950 made about $42 a week. That's roughly $144 a month, which is a bit more than what Klinger would have made as a corporal. Now, I know that it's said that Morty is a sausage maker, but butcher wages are all I could find, the closest thing to it. So if you have a problem with that, well, tough potatoes. Anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about. There's a lot of other cool characters, but honestly, Klinger is just my favourite. I highly recommend watching this series. It's just really funny, and it does have a lot of good messages, like primarily like anti-war and the sanctity of life. It does have a lot of great humour. Some of it hasn't aged well, like it's a bit like off its time, so you kind of just gotta keep that in mind. It does also have a lot of references that'll just go like straight over your head. There'll be a scene every now and again where someone will say something like, "Oh, you look like Bob Bobbington," and they all laugh their asses off, and I'm like, "What the hell's going on?" But it's still funny. Anyway, that's my favourite MASH character from one of my favourite shows. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. I'm Ovada, signing off. Make sure to subscribe if you like it, like if you liked it, dislike if you disliked it, and yeah, bye.